Okay. So I wanted to share a few things that came up for me after the last time we met. I realized I hadn't really felt like myself, like in my own skin the last time we all met. I was very nervous about the eclectic group I had put together, and I was also conscious of being white and being the one to initiate and not wanting to dominate. But then I just decided to not really fully facilitate the way I normally would. Perhaps that's not what the best way to put it, but I just found that in retrospect, I think I felt some self-consciousness about how to orchestrate in a way that didn't perpetuate colonialism, but at the same time recognizing the lens we bring into any situation. And I think I just felt intimidated in part because I wanted things to go well. I was impressed by the power of the women that were involved, and I wanted people to naturally mesh or for the dynamics to work, and I wanted to have a productive conversation. Since our last meeting, a couple of things have stood out to me. The deep ceremony work that women can do together, it's very healing and it's very powerful. I have witnessed that recently, and I think women dealing with mother wounds together or father wounds together through psychedelic medicine is very powerful and very revolutionary work. I think these medicines are intrinsically feminine, and I think we offer a different understanding of these medicines. And I think that scares men, or it scares the patriarchy in everyone. And I'll give you an example. I've been trying to bond with Rivka, who I would love to bring to this group. And she's trying to start a psychedelic kibbutz. And she's also trying to start a synagogue for studying the divine feminine aspect of Judaism. And she's working with New York Decrim and does a lot with Black Lives Matter and animal rights activism. And when I told her the idea about doing this national sit-in or international sit-in on plant medicine, which could reach like 20,000 people if we work with Thank You Plant Medicine. And the idea that we take plant medicine out of the closet and we fight back against the stigma, and we do so in peaceful sit-ins all around the nation or all around the world. And all of us openly microdosing 1 or 2 mushrooms in gatherings around the country and around the world. And what an amazingly powerful movement that would be. And as she and I were bonding over trying to get that idea off the ground, and basically it's a revolutionary idea of protest, and it brings plant medicine center stage instead of constant COVID on the news. And anyways, when she and I were starting to have these conversations about how to get this started, it's interesting, the men that have come in to navigate the conversation or add their 2 cents. And a lot of it feels like it's about control. Like even if they say that they're supportive of female leadership, like they still wrestle with that and they just have to control it almost. And it's just interesting to observe this even with male allies. Like they don't want women to lead, or they say they want women to lead, but they don't want women to lead, or they don't want women to have control, or they don't want women to execute in the leadership or execute their own ideas. It's almost like too much power for these poor women. So they don't even observe themselves subconsciously trying to wrestle it away from Rivka and I. Like it's just interesting to observe as I navigate the world of psychedelic revolution times that appear to be taking off. And how do we embrace the divine feminine that is also out here aching to be heard? And then even more specifically, how do we encourage psychedelic communities that claim to have an open door policy for people of color, but also once you enter, the communities are also having these toxic moments and these toxic aspects of colonialism. Like in so many ways, white people don't have culture. And through this type of indigenous medicine, they can become very susceptible to trying to take culture away or appropriate culture from indigenous members of our community. And as I observed this and talked to this woman, Malika, that recently touched base with our group, and she works with harm reduction in Washington State and also works with race relations. I had a discussion with her about this issue, and she recently explained it in a way that I could clearly get in terms of how toxic these grassroots environments can be in terms of perpetuating trauma. And it's almost like a double insult because the premise is that it's open to everyone. So it's a double bind in a psychological kind of way, because it's almost like a person of color might imagine that it's going to be a safe place because it's stated to be, or it's perpetuated on the premise that it is. But because that's not their experience, it can feel like a deeper vulnerability or a sense of exposure there because the environment claimed to be welcoming. So how to address racism and classism and sexism within the community. So those are my thoughts. Does anyone want to jump in?
So I'm really hearing everything that you have that has come to mind. I'm pretty new to this conversation as far as being in this group uh, with uh, with this particular topic, at least. Um, I apologize, I'm rambling. But no, I'm really hearing everything you say. I want to also help to make this a safe space for people of color, for all backgrounds, whether you're a business owner or you were homeless. So how can we make this an all-inclusive environment for everybody? And I'm for that. However we can do that, I'm definitely for it. Opening that, just opening everything to, and being direct, having that direct action, like showing, like coming up and showing with our actions that we are inclusive, we are this welcoming environment. And I would definitely, and so opening it to more people of color, women of color, I feel we'll be able to show that we are that safe space.
Hey.
Hello.
Gus, do you mind giving a recap? Like, because I'm just a little bit like emotionally exhausted from like reading my whole thing, but do you mind like helping me out, like giving Trinity an update?
Oh, yeah, no problem. So Leo just put it out there that, we need to make, if we are going to be inclusive, we need to show in not only our words, but in our actions that we are an all-inclusive group, that because this is our home, this is everybody's home, and we all are on this planet together. We definitely have to act like it and show it. So, and Leo, I'm very new to this meeting, but I lost my train of thought. I do apologize.
It's okay.
But in addition, I was suggesting that with the rise of the divine feminine, how do we not only create communities that are safe for people of color, like beyond just throwing open the door, the psychedelic door and being like, it's open to everyone, but like these communities that historically have been excluded from the movement, like how do we include them, but also retain them and support them? Like, because it's so easy to perpetuate like colonialism and racism, just these toxic things that are re-traumatizing. And so how do we be a different like revolution here? And I was telling Des the other day, I'm like, oh, in our local decrim group, like I feel like I'm just like, I'm pulling all these like color, but like maybe like gay and lesbian women, like just like, and I was telling Des, like, I feel self-conscious about like that aspect, but another part of me is like, why? Like, what if we were like one movement in the country like that for some reason pulls that? Like, that's our general vibe. Like, could there be some safe place where women could celebrate diversity and not be pitted against one another the way capitalism, patriarchy wants them to be? And like, could our movement include that aspect and be kind of holding that space for like the divine feminine, you know? And I was also sharing that I have this like global idea of doing a massive sit-in on mushrooms, where everyone does 1 or 2 mushrooms and we do it openly and we take back like the right to do these things naturally and in people's space, but not like fighting the power, but like not doing it apologetically either, and just like reclaiming the opportunity to say this is not something we're just like doing in private anymore. Like, see us everywhere, we are plant medicine, you know? And so like it's interesting that Rivka, who's Jewish and a woman that I'm working with over in Decrim, New York, she's trying to start a psychedelic kibbutz. She and I like are working on this idea, and like it's women leading the movement, right? And then all of a sudden there's all these men that are just kind of like trying to control that, or trying to control that process. And like just processing with Rivka about like how these men that say that they're allies and they say they want to support women in leadership, like their actions kind of show something different. Like their actions kind of show this like fear of like the divine feminine, like rising up, like don't be, you know, be careful ladies, like don't, you know, raise the divine feminine too far, or don't, you know, make it too big. And like what that? What is it about that fear?
Mm-hmm.
How do we have that conversation in ways that men can hear without getting defensive?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Am I to respond to this or just receive this?
Up to you.
Respond? Oh,
It's up
okay.
to you.
I mean, I can always respond. I like always have things to say. So I have to ask.
Go for it. Share your thoughts. This is my first time meeting.
Yeah, hello, Tatiana. Hello, Michelle. There's Denise here, Monique, and the beautiful Haley. I'm so happy to see you here, love, with all your beautiful herbs behind you. And Chadez, is that how I say your name?
Yeah.
Chadez, beautiful. I like that. I never heard that before, and I like it a lot.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, with the whole everything that you said is really real, and I like immediately started like receiving potential solutions. I never like to say that the things that come to me are actual solutions because we don't really know if anything is a solution until we try it. But I think the reason, I think what's off-putting to a lot of women of high melanation, which is what I'm choosing to say, because the whole myth of Black people and white people is exactly that. It's a myth that has been put into place to create polarity, to further polarity, when in all actuality, we are all carbon-based life forms. The main component chemically in melanin is carbon, and that's the main component in life in this little corner of the universe. And the only people who are actually without melanin to a very high degree is albino people. And that is how originally, when like the great mother from Africa, when she started the procreation cycle of humans, that's how we got the genetic modification genome to then start to create lighter races of human, was by albino people being born these genetic anomalies and then rebreeding with other highly melanated people and then creating these races of like lighter spectrum of melanin. And so we're all beings of melanin, and we just exist on the spectrum of either being highly saturated in our rainbow hues or having like less pigmentation in our rainbow hues, but it's all part of the rainbow. We're all rainbow people. You cannot take a figure like oil painting class and not know that. You will never use the color Black or the color white to create skin tone. You just won't. So I will not, like, I'm doing my very best to not play into that word game anymore by using those terms when communicating about my brothers and sisters on this planet. So I think one of the ways to create space for beings of higher melanation within the psychedelic community is by allowing the beings of high melanation who are already really like knowledgeable and privy to what it means to be ambassadors of these plants to be seen, vocalizing and holding space for the wisdom that we all individually hold about these plants. And then that is how the language can be communicated in a way that will be inviting to people who haven't tried it and want to try it. Because there's also, you can't force anybody to want to be a part of something that they are afraid of. And it comes to people in their own time. And plant medicine is not the path for everybody. It's the path for some people. And for those people who look like me or look like Haley or look like anyone else in this container that are highly melanated, they will feel attracted and safer seeing faces and voices and vernacular that they understand at the forefront. Because that's one of the main things is like, people have good intentions, but if they're not expressing it in like inside of English exists trillions of other languages based on like what you come from and what your experience is. And so the language that might work for you, Leo, to describe your experience with psychedelics may completely like be off-putting or just not register to an African American woman. She's like, what are you talking about? Like, that's like, that sounds like bullshit or like whatever. But she needs to hear it from like someone that will speak it to her in a way that she can understand, right? And so that's one thing that I feel is very important. Like, people don't even know this brother. He passed, Kalindi Lee. I don't even know how many of you know about him, but he was from Detroit. Look him up, Kalindi Ely. He was like this martial artist that eventually got into doing really, really high doses of mushrooms, higher than Terrence McKenna or his brother Dennis would ever be brave enough to go. He's doing like 40-gram doses and things like that, and really getting into the subatomic realms and doing all these lectures, connecting, showing people the connections and symbology of how mushroom culture has been a part of our like way of understanding the world and gaining wisdom since ancient times. Like, just like a bunch of beautiful stuff is out there with him, and people don't even really know about him. And he passed away like at the beginning of the COVID whole situation. And so uplifting more voices that are like in the realm, that are like, you know, gonna be speaking in a way that people can receive it. And then as far as like working with the masculine, like, you know, the truth of the matter is like, we're all in our vessels that are like, either like, gender is something that exists in all dimensions. Like, gender equals generation. Without gender, we don't procreate. There is no life without gender. So we have our vessel gender, right? Which is like, you know, a part of our lesson and a part of the lane of existence that we're currently rocking in this lifetime. But then inside has to be a balance. The feminine and masculine energy has to be balanced in all beings for you to be able to be a functional human. You have to have both pillars balanced. And so when we're talking about bringing men into the divine feminine rising movement, which to me just means, it doesn't mean the rising of hyper femininity and a distorted feminine, but the rising of listening to the voices of balanced feminine beings who are whole with and complete within themselves and able to step forward. When it comes along to that, it takes for the masculine beings to also be balanced and whole and complete within themselves, so that they're like not like experiencing extreme, I'm not trying to word this nicely so I don't like sound like how I want to sound, but like, so they don't experience extreme insecurity and possessiveness and all of those lower masculine energies when they're trying to hold space. So for me, that feels like a vetting process. And just because somebody says that they want to be a part of it doesn't mean that they're saying they want to be a part of it for the right reasons. And a lot of men could be saying that they want to be a part of it just because they want to have a hand in enough to obtain some sort of sense of control over the situation because they're afraid of the situation. And so it can't just be like allowing anyone in that wants to be coming in, because people are like, you know, got their own little agendas and work to do.
I wanted to share something else, because like Rivka and I like both observed there was 21 people on this call that we had with Carlos, like 21 people. It was amazing. And it was so diverse and like so powerful, and like so many women of color. And it was just like, you know, the energy was just so positive. But then Rivka and I observed afterward, like both of us were just texting like, man, like the men needed in that conversation. Like, so they've done studies to show that men perceive women as talking more than they're actually talking. And like there's just like this almost like veil over everyone's eyes, men and women in our society, in terms of how much do we allow women to talk? How much do we allow ourselves to listen to women? And it's just interesting to observe that in that 21 person conversation, I swear women spoke maybe like 5% of the time. And I was sitting wondering, is anyone else bothered by this? Is anyone else feeling this? Like, this is really disturbing to me. But was there a man there at that meeting that was like, oh, I'm noticing women only talking 5% of the time? Like, I almost feel like we need a box in the corner of the conversation that is actually tallying the percentage of women and men. Like, someone needs to develop so that we can actually see like, oh my God, it's so skewed 95% to 5%, or maybe even for like people of color. Like, I don't know what you guys think about that, but like, I feel like we need constant feedback of like, who's at the table, who's sitting at the table, and who's talking at the table.
So, well, why can't it be curated? I mean, the whole call is curated anyway. Like, everybody is agreeing to be on the Zoom call for curated intentions. It's not like a random conversation. So why can't it be curated where there's like, because these seems like these are skills that need to be learned and reconditioned, and we know that that's how humans work, and our minds have to be conditioned to move in a certain way. So another thing that can be employed is like designated amount of time for each person on the call to talk, so that everyone is heard and not just the people who have the very open throat chakras.
So speaking to what Leo said, there are scientific studies that do prove that, and I'm using the terms black and white, but that white men speak a lot more than women, that white women will speak over women of color. And so, you know, there are already scientific studies that show that this is a real thing that does happen.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like we need to do some training, conversational training zones.
Yeah, I'm open to ideas. I think it's just more of like just sitting for a moment in awareness of this. Like, as Rivka and I are talking about this national or international movement, like this would be the first thing within the decrim community that is solely like orchestrated by women and you know, created by women. Do you know what I mean? On a national, international level. And so it's got that touch of like that feminine like leadership, like that Joan of Arc like kind of energy or whatever. And it's just saying, how do we react to that Joan of Arc energy? Do we say like, oh my God, don't be another Timothy Leary and like make everything so radical and set us back in our footsteps? No radical women. Like, you know how society gets very tense or very reactive to angry women. You know, we would rather our women be on antidepressants than be angry, you know?
Yeah.
Does anyone else have any thoughts on this?
I think for facilitating a meeting, it might be helpful to like have someone be conscious of like who's speaking, and maybe give them a gentle reminder in the beginning, like, hey, everyone, take into account like when you are sharing, like how much you're sharing, and maybe keep in the back of your mind of making space for other people. Like if you're really comfortable sharing your voice, practice waiting 10 seconds before speaking to make space for, you know, like little things like that can actually help, because there's folks that are just like super jazzed to ask all the questions, and they're not thinking about that at all. And also speaking to just culturally like conditioned to just like, you know, be like, yeah, I have questions, and they'll get answered, you know, like putting themselves out there. So there's definitely a lot of that. Like when I was in ADA, which is a program to get folks into software development, it's only for basically everyone who's not like a cisgendered male. It's for them to get into like a way to like spread economic justice by getting people into software development. People never asked questions in my class, and this was a classroom full of non-white men, you know, and this exists not just in those spaces, but it's within like just what we've been conditioned to do. People are afraid of asking questions in general. They're afraid of being vulnerable and being wrong. So like, I think front loading some of these things at our meetings would be helpful. And it's also about practice. So going back to something that Leo, you were speaking about earlier about connecting with people of color, I think that something that really lacks is mentorship. So like when we bring folks in, it's not enough to just say, come join. Like establishing like, here's someone that can mentor you for the next X amount of time, teach you about these things, help you learn, you know, resources, that kind of thing. Especially if you want to partner with folks. And then also looking for leaders that already exist in those spaces. Like they're out there, like the Sabrina Project is one that I just recently learned about. there's like so much going on social media that you can find and connect with people and find like those bridges that tie us together. And there's already expertise out there. They're just not like, when I looked at the psilocybin summit, like they actually, there's some people on there that I was impressed that they are connected with, because there's been other online summits like with psychedelic themes, and it's just people that look the same essentially. But this one's actually a little bit more diverse than I was expecting. So I'm gonna check it out and see how that summit thing plays out. So, but yeah, it's my 2 cents. I can't hear folks. Oh, but thumbs up, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that all sounds really good. I feel you on all of that. And also like how different cultures receive information needs to be taken into accountability, because I know, like, I'm just reflecting too on like environments, learning atmospheres where I've been around mostly people that look like me. And sometimes like people just receive information and don't feel like they need to ask a question.
Mhm.
That's also, it's like how people are raised too, that affects that cultural like bridge of like just culture around questions. Like questions that I remember that being something that I had to consciously learn how to do, was like, how do I like engage conversationally with questions? How do I like make myself ask questions, you know? So thank you for bringing that up, Tatiana, because that's very real.
Hi, everyone. My name is Haley Maria. It is such an honor to be here with you. Hello, Trinity. Thank you so much for recommending me to Leo. Appreciate you. You know, I'm listening to all of you and receiving your perspective, and I'm so incredibly grateful to be here in this space with people from different backgrounds and experiences. One of the things that I noticed, this is my first time meeting here with all of you, is that there's no container. We need a container. We need to acknowledge the forces we're working with. We need to acknowledge the medicines that we're working with. We need to acknowledge our purpose. We need to acknowledge each other. We need to acknowledge all of the elements, all of the directions that have made it possible for us to do this work together. And so, you know, I'm Yaqui Radamuri and Maya. My family comes from Mexico. I was born here in the United States, and ceremony is an incredibly important part of my life. And when I work with these medicines in ceremony, I, you know, receive messages from them. And one of the most potent messages that I've received from plant medicines in ceremony is that I am an extension of these plant medicines. I am an extension of Earth. We are all Earth. So when we come together and we work and we speak, we are not only speaking for those of our communities, those of our similar backgrounds, we're also speaking for the Earth. We're also speaking on behalf of these medicines, because we're all connected. We all have the same intention here of bringing these medicines to people in a safe, accessible, honorable way. And I feel very passionately that this is something that when we continue to meet, I would like to encourage us to establish a container. And the reason why the container is so important is because not only are we bringing in all of these forces, calling in all of the forces that we are working with, we are creating a protective space, a space where we all feel free and safe and held by these forces. That's just my 2 cents as far as how to create a safe space, especially for you know, indigenous, people of color, highly melanated, beautiful beings. And I'd love to hear your thoughts and perspective on that.
I have a question. I'm not quite following on the container part. Like, are we saying like norms or like, could you speak more about on what the container means?
Absolutely. So I didn't quite hear what you were saying on norms. Could you?
Oh, I said I wasn't quite following on what the container represents.
So the container represents the vessel that we are operating in. It is our spaceship through the time and space and the themes and topics that we're going to be exploring. And if you're going to be flying through space, exploring all of these high vibe, energetic energies, and especially when it comes to medicine, it's good to be in a ship, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess that's like the closest metaphor that I could think of as a container. But, you know, here we are. We're on the virtual fireplace, where that's where we're gathering around. We are gathering over the virtual fireplace. That is the power of technology, right? And it's electrical, it's warm, it makes us connected. So like we have to create a space, a container where we are all together around this fire, where we're all paying attention to each other through this sacred connection that we have. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think a bit more, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up, Haley. I agree 100%. I spend a lot of time doing really, really potent energy work with people in these types of spaces and in any space. And another word for container that I like to use is prayer, like opening and closing prayer and acknowledgement for these energies that we're communicating about and that we are like expressing our communion with. And I agree with you, Haley, 100% that it just changes the tone and it allows for everyone to ground and acknowledge that we are together, even though we're all sitting in our own rooms in different parts of the world, but our togetherness here, it allows for us to open our ears to hear what the plants want us to be communicating about and what the ancestral realms want us to be communicating about, and to hold all that in a more potent field together. And another aspect of containership that I really feel is important is the closing of the container, so that there are not these like open-ended things or leaky energy moving back out from when we get up from this space. We are like just acknowledging Haley Maria, I would say it all, Haley Maria, that we are acknowledging this space as sacred and like stepping into it in that way, and then leaving it in that way too, without carrying energy with it. And I just find that like the plant realms and the ancestral realms really appreciate that as well. So I just want to say that. Thank you.
One thought I have is, why don't we, because it's come up twice now, the whole idea of like, let's starting with some kind of prayer or setting an intention or so forth. Like, I think like that's an act, like we're channeling. So I feel like that we can still do kind of like an opening, like welcoming that, that I'm happy to start and then pass off to you if you're open.
Who are you talking to, Trinity or?
I was talking to both of you. But like maybe we could just take a moment, because I think Shamsi just got on, and so I want to we're just gonna kind of start with like an opening prayer for thanking all of you for being here from all over the United States, and recognizing the power in the room, in the virtual fireplace, and just taking a deep breath of welcome and gratitude to be in this space together, and try to share our truth and try to support one another.
Lisa Cousin Cell.
Go ahead. Do you want to continue?
I always begin opening the container through a permiso. So permiso is permission, right? So you ask permission to do this work. And generally that involves calling in the 4 direction, or I'll just do it. Calling in the direction of the east, the direction of the rising sun, the direction of a new day. Call upon any light beings, any guides or guardians of the east. If you so choose to join us in this conversation on women and people of color in the psychedelic movement, we ask you here for your guidance and your protection and your wisdom. We thank you for joining us. We call upon the direction of the south, the direction of warmth and passion. We call in these energies to guide us in our work, for us to feel held in this container, for our passion to drive forth this purpose. We call upon any guides, guardians, light beings from the south who would like to protect, guide, or provide any wisdom to us as we do this work in the psychedelic movement. We welcome you. We call upon the direction of the west, that of the setting sun, the day, the dream world. We call upon any guides, guardians, light beings of the west who would like to join us and provide protection, guidance, wisdom. As we enter into the realm of the dream worlds through these medicines that we will be speaking about, we welcome you. We call upon the direction of the north, the direction of wisdom, the direction of our ancestors. I call upon my ancestors, and we together call upon the ancestors of everyone on this call here today. We ask you for your guidance, your wisdom, your protection. We ask you to use us as a vessel to speak on your behalf as we do this important work, as we honor you. We thank you for your presence. Father Sky, we thank you for always being there for us, for always shining light upon us, providing us growth, the divine masculine. We thank you for your guidance as we discuss the divine feminine in the plant medicine and the psychedelic revolution. We pray that you bring balance into this conversation as we, as feminine identifying beings, come together to do this work. Thank you, Father Sky. Madrecita tierra, madrecita tierra, madrecita tierra, Pachamama, Tonantzin. We thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, Pachamama. Madre Tierra, thank you so much for providing each and every single thing that we need to not only survive, but to also thrive. Thank you for providing all of these medicines, all of the medicines that heal, all of the medicines that bring us together. We pray that you guide us in this work as we become the vessel of your medicines. We pray that we are guided to share our stories, to share our perspectives, so that way not only us, but also those who hear us can walk with you and on you in a better way. We honor you. Great mystery, Wankanpanka. We give ourselves to the great mystery in this work. We honor and acknowledge you. Thank you to all of the light beings, all of the guardians and guides and ancestors who are here with us today. Aho.
Oh, thank you.
So it's really interesting. After Leo did the prayer, I could, like in my mind's eye, I saw us in the circle, each with our own guides with us. And in the middle of the circle, there was a beam that's basically channeling to us. So that's what I got. What I've been getting while using plant medicine for some time now is that the voice of the feminine is awakening. That's I don't know, the age that we're going into right now is where the voice of the feminine is awakening. That oh my God, sorry, I've forgotten my beautiful sister here, has said that it is supposed to be balanced voices, not not a polarized voice where we're too far left or too far right, and that men are supposed to be in a very supportive role of the feminine going forward. I've also been getting that this plant medicine should be spread internationally, that it's not just to stay here, because it is what's going to help to reawaken the feminine and the feminine worldwide. So this is why I also know that I need to be taking this medicine with me when I go back to the motherland.
Do you feel like sharing more about the mission there that you foresee for yourself?
Well, right now, what I'm seeing is that one, I'm supposed to be taking this back to Uganda when I go back, and the plan so far that I've been seeing is that because I do have some property there, is that it should be a space for, and I'm going to say camping, kind of like low budget traveling, but where people can come together and do plant medicine and whole space. And it's really interesting because I'm not the only one that's getting that. There's someone else that's in the area that have spoken to the area shamans, and he's also been told that that's what's supposed to happen. And I have another friend who is in Montreal at this point, and she's also supposed to go back and hold space. So where we're going to be going is actually a space where the light beings, the Bachwezi tribes had light beings that used to live among them. And this is the area in Uganda where apparently, or rumor has it, or myth has it, that this is the area where they used to congregate. There are several volcanic lakes in the area. And so people used to be able to see and interact with the Bachwezi tribe. And after a while, the Bachwezi, and this is the myth that, humans just became too muddled and were no longer able to see them. And so, we've been told that in this moment, we're supposed to go back and reactivate. And it's actually in that area of the Bachwezi people that we're supposed to go back and reactivate, and to help to bring the voices back to, to the human realm, and it's supposed to be done through medicine. So it's really interesting. I've been getting this from the mushrooms, and the other lady who is um, in Canada, she's been getting it from the cannabis edibles, and she makes her own edibles, so she uses pure stuff. And the male who is supposed to be doing this with us is actually already in Uganda, and he's holding space in the area, and he's the one that's already spoken to the shamans of the area to talk about the, you know, revitalizing and where we've bought land. Again, like I said, it's just where, you know, we need to start to revitalize the energy from. So all three of us are supposed to be holding space, and what we've been getting is, so I've been channeling like a male energy from the area, and she's been channeling a female energy, and we're actually going to be talking to someone who is able to, I guess, understand and pick up on all of this, and just kind of bring like a I don't know, like a solidifying of the communications for us. So there's like a lot happening right now, but a lot of it is around female energies being, female energies coming forward, and you know, male energies bringing in that supporting role, but not overtaking us, and just a,
But I don't mean to interrupt, but like, I don't feel like men have gotten the memo. I don't think they've gotten the memo that all these women are supposed to use like witchcraft in a positive way, like reclaiming witchcraft, to use the plant medicines to go and like heal the planet or heal humanity. Like, I just don't think they've gotten the memo. I'm just wondering, what do you think about that?
Some men have, because the guy that we're working with, he definitely has gotten the memo. But, you know, again, everything takes time, right? And so what I've been getting is that we're no longer supposed to be polarized. Like, we're not supposed to be too far feminine, we're not supposed to be too far masculine. But, you know, I guess within the yin yang symbol, what is that in the middle? You know, that nothingness in the middle. So I guess, you know, we're supposed to be coming closer to that. So that's actually what I've been getting. And, you know, various other messages, but mainly that's what I've been getting, is that this is now the time of the feminine, and the feminine voices are going to be becoming, I want to say, louder, or is going to be heard more, maybe not louder, but
no, I feel that so strongly. I feel like it's louder or stronger or something. I feel like you can see it happening, you can feel it happening.
Yes. And so this is why, like, the indigenous cultures are coming back up, not just in the Americas, but worldwide. The indigenous cultures are being reactivated. So, you know, and they have been holding space for us this whole time, you know. So, you know, we've kind of pushed them aside, but if you look, you know, there's a big reactivation of that happening. Colonization is definitely falling apart, and yeah, so that's kind of the direction that I have been told that we're moving into. And the other message that I've been getting is that right now, in this 2020, in this crazy pandemic virus period, is a time of play, or a time of rest, because the real work is getting ready to start. So, you know, before work starts, you have to rest, you have to play, you have to, you know, kind of move the energies in that direction, so that we're able to sit down and buckle down, you know, and have the energy to do the work. So that's what I've been getting for the past few months, actually.
I find you very psychic, so I agree 100% with your vibe on what's happening.
Thanks, Leo.
Well, I mean, you and I were talking about what area of the world was resonating the strongest, and both of us like randomly choose Africa. Like, not randomly, but both of us were resonating with like the hot energy, like the hot lava of this planet.
Yeah.
And that's right before I talked to Trinetti, I think, but like you and I were both like, it's the continent of Africa. like that energy's on fire.
Yeah. So, and I think a big part of that is that Africa is the first chakra continent. You know, I mean, if you think about it, it's, you know, out of that continent has been like a lot of issues of survival, food insecurity, you know, water insecurity. So there's been like a lot of issues of survival. And so it's, I don't know, but personally, I feel that we are getting ready to jump a chakra. And you know, and you know, along with the lower energies, there are also some very high energy areas, which is like 7 chakra areas as well throughout the continent. And I feel like that kind of is going to tie in together. And you know, again, we just kind of have to wait and see how it's going to play out, or direct it into how it's going to play out. But yeah, that's actually what I've been getting for several months now. So I have been trying to, it's funny because I've been trying to get back to Africa since about February, March of this year, and it's just not been happening. And I've been really, really resistant of being here. But there's like a lot that I've been taught as I've been here in the Americas, as to, you know, what's coming next. And Soulful Resonance is asking, which plant am I speaking of? So I've been using mushroom, but you know, I've been actually just trying to pick up on the different energies of the different species of mushrooms. And by using them myself and just kind of going internally and seeing what is coming up for me, but also going online and looking at other people's trip reports. And it's really funny because the different species of mushrooms, almost across the board, if you actually look at it, people are saying the same things about the different species. So, you know, not only am I looking at it internally, but then after I've done the species and then I go externally and start to investigate, I am seeing like it's the same thing that's coming up for people. So I find that to be pretty interesting. And so I kind of want to use them, different ones across the board. And I'm also asking them as well, when I am partaking of these plant medicine, which ones are supposed to come back with me. So you know, so I'm really interested in that as well. And then, like I said, the other young lady that is, you know, is channeling the feminine energy from that area, from the Bachwezi people. She is using cannabis, and she's just been making it into edibles. But I mean, she has stacks and stacks of journals of stuff that's been, you know, that she's been channeling, and that's been coming through. So she is, you know, saying to me as well, she doesn't even know when she's going to be able to even go back and reread these journals to see what is being said. And the energies are telling her right now, that's not the worry. You know, right now, her focus is supposed to be on just getting the information down. She is a writer also, so she's written a book in the past. So she says she doesn't know if this is also supposed to be a book that will be coming in the near future. So
I have a question though. Do you have a sense that the plant medicine is waking up and becoming more conscious, or piercing through the veil more? And you know, like how they'll say like an idea will come forward at the same time in human history in different parts of the world, and like Hashem just wants the idea down here. Like it doesn't matter who gets the idea, but like you'll just find the same idea in human history occurring at the same time. And I'm just wondering, like, since all these people are like waking up or feeling the channeling of the plant medicine communicating through them, like these portals seem more open. It seems like the plant medicine is kind of rushing its agenda, like pushing it down on the, you know, the gas pedal a little bit. Like it seems like things are speeding up. And I'm just wondering if we're sensing that like in conjunction with the divine feminine, but it definitely seems like it wants to get through to the masses like on a larger scale now.
So what, it's interesting that you say that, because I feel like we are waking up. It's not that the plants are waking up. The plants were already awake. We are the ones that are sleeping. And so now that we are awakening, the plants are able to speak more through us. And so, you know, it has to basically hit the gas pedal now and kind of, you know, basically push it down our throats, so, you know, so to speak. Because yeah, it's like, okay, we are awakening, we're getting almost to critical mass. And so, you know, we need to get this out there more so that more people are partaking and more people are able to wake up. And so that's basically what I've been getting. And it's really interesting. So recently, you know, Tatiana and I, we hang out quite a bit. And I absolutely love it. And we met someone else who was with us when he tried his first plant medicine. And, you know, I kind of felt a little bit responsible to help to guide him through that a little bit when he was having a hard time. So, you know, that was interesting. And through that, he actually brought somebody else on board. So I kind of feel like it's each one teach one, you know? And like, that's what's happening right now, is that, you know, those of us who are privy to plant medicine, not to say that, you know, we should go out and recruit people, but, you know, if people are interested in trying, like maybe being a guide and being there and sitting with them and helping them, and, you know, being the voice to speak to that next person. So it was quite interesting for me that the person that did try it and then, you know, I guess brought somebody else on board was a highly melanated person. And again, this is what we're told. Oh, hang on just one second, Neil. Sorry, I'm just trying to get the noise down in the house so you guys can hear me. So yeah, it's really interesting. You know, I've spoken to other people of color who have said that this is not their medicine. This is stuff that they don't mess with, and it's not something that, you know, the Black community is interested in. But, you know, I find that people are starting to come to plant medicine more and more.
Can I say something just briefly about that? So one thing that really speaks to my heart is the Native community. And when Carlos was talking about, like, you guys should be based in the ghetto, or you should be based in where the pain and suffering is for your community, and kind of figure out where that is. And I've thought so much about how I've literally just been so caught up in the Native community and feeling that sense of we owe so much to that Native wound, and how do we repair these broken Native people, because I've worked in the Native community for the last 20 years. And it's interesting because you can't bring this plant medicine as a white person to the Native community. Like, that relationship is too tenuous, because the plant medicine was taken away from them. And so to come back like 100 years later and be like, sorry, we killed your babies and raped your women and destroyed your land and killed you, but now we want you to try plant medicine. Like, no hard feelings, right? Like, I just don't think the conversation is go very well. And so one thing I've observed is when I've given it to Native people that are like Native people that are connected to the Native community, that are actually like really in touch with their culture, I see them bringing it to their Native friends and family. And then I see it slowly starting to grow. And I just got contacted by this Native woman today. And so if they can help heal their communities themselves, like with everything that colonization has created, like, this is like an amazing thing, because there's so much hardship in the Native community, like in terms of the reservation. So I just hear you 100%. I just hear you 100% that it's yeah, so meaningful. But Haley wanted to say something real quick.
But I'm sorry, Haley, before you go, I just want to address something that you said, Leo. And I don't know if you said it subconsciously or what, but saying bringing it to the ghetto. So poor people live in the ghetto. It is not a hub for Black people. It is a hub for poor people. And so, you know, you can't bring something to the ghetto if that is not where you live, and those are not people that you interact with. So you have to bring it to your community, wherever your community is. And it's not necessarily that, you know, Black people are going to bring it to the ghetto, because there are many different people that live in the ghetto. So you bring it to your community, whoever your community is and wherever your community is.
Yeah, that's what I meant more, but I'm sorry if I said that in a different way. When Carlos had talked about starting it in the communities down there that are poor and that happen to be people of color, he said, find that here, find that here, wherever that pain and suffering is. But Haley Marie wanted to say something too.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak on Michelle and Haley Maria, please. I just wanted to speak on what you were talking about earlier about how you kept trying to go back to Africa, in February and March, and just something is keeping you here. And obviously there's a pandemic going on, but we are collectively experiencing something, right? And I feel like the pandemic has forced us into winter. Winter is the time of introspection. It is the time of going into yourself. So when we speak about us noticing the the shifts, the energetic shifts that we're noticing with people, and people are starting to wake up, they're starting to elevate a little bit. I mean, it's a blessing in disguise. Yes, there is a lot of terrible things happening right now, but that is pushing us. And Michelle, I would really like to encourage you. And I think you did mention how you're trying to figure out which strains of the specific plant medicine that you're working with, trying to create a relationship with them and see which ones you need to bring back. Like, this is your time. This is your time to go inward and work with these plant medicines and really just create that relationship. And this is your opportunity to do that, because if you would have left before, right? And so what the medicines that you're bringing back to the community there, I know it's hard. I know you don't want to be here. I don't want to be here either. But, take this as an opportunity to really foster that relationship and go inward and see exactly, create the relationship to the point where you can find the best medicines and the best practices to bring back to that community. And obviously the indigenous communities there will also have their own practices, and just finding out a way to merge together. And I can see you're very in tune, you're very open, and use that power to do this work. And I'm so happy to hear this incredible opportunity that you have to be doing this work over there. And I just want you to know that I am amplifying your work through prayer. Yeah, incredible work. And Trinity, I do believe you had something you wanted to say.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Haley Maria, for creating space for me. And thank you, Michelle, for all that you shared. And I think what I have to say kind of speaks to what both of y'all are saying, but really like some things that Michelle said, like sparked things in me. I posted a link, and that's to Kalindi's main website. He also has a bunch of videos on YouTube. But what's interesting about that, he's not an ancestor. That ancestor's work is he did a lot of research on the origins of mushrooms in Africa, and how that's really like the birthplace of the mushroom spirit. And also on some other things that are worked with their like akasha like brews, like akasha like tree brews that are not ayahuasca brews, but akasha tree brews that are used for different initiations and rites of passage in different tribes. So that's something that could be interesting to look into as you communicate with the shamans there. The main thing that I kept receiving is like, what are the strains that grow wild on that land? What is there? What is the mother giving there? That is the information technology that is there. And that's something else too. Mushrooms specifically, amongst all the plants, I find to be more of an information technology, which is very healing to have access to clear, uncorrupted information. That's not necessarily a thing that I would call medicine. And I think that's also something it's interesting that that's become the terminology to describe these plants and like what they do. And some of them like are actually like purely like medicine plants, but then the mushroom is just very like interesting technology, this tool, this communication tool that can be used medicinally, but can also be an educational device and an inner inquiry device, which has healing components to it. And I think sometimes like in the languaging, when we word things as medicine, it makes people feel broken, like they're like, in order to feel like partaking in this, there must be something wrong with me and I need to be fixed. And that's not necessarily always the language that works for people. So that's just something else that I've become aware of as I've worked with the mushroom spirit specific. That's like my main spirit that I feel ancestrally connected to and like is really real and alive for me. I've worked with San Pedro before and had that be very powerful medicinal experience working with that plant. But mushrooms has been both healing and medicinal, but also like informational, just like developing your intuitive like oracle abilities, something else that's available there. And then something else that I wanted to speak to that kind of was brought up through Michelle and then Leo was like the like people like African American people not feeling like there's a space for them with psychedelics, or like it's for them, especially like mushrooms and things like that. Anything that goes with like, you know, taking something and like being in an altered state of mind. I personally am from the ghetto. I do not live in the ghetto anymore, but I am from there. I'm from Inglewood on the south side of Chicago. And that is not a space that you bring plant medicine. It's not a space that you bring this type of energy. Those spaces were created to isolate, confine, oppress, and hurt people. And to open up psychic gates inside of spaces like that is very irresponsible, because there's a lot of energy that cannot be controlled there, that is very dark and very maleficent. And the people will not feel safe opening in those spaces because they just don't feel safe there. Like the lack of safety is a constant, that feeling. And so if any of you are in the mindset of wanting to create space for people who live in those communities that to engage in mind opening experiences, it has to be a situation of creating space for them to come into an environment that feels safe, to be in that environment of safety, to go through the process of their healing and transformation, and to have enough time in that environment that is safe to integrate and have a actual tangible game plan of how they are going to return to their home and what they intend to do with their energy, with this new awareness when they return to their home, so that they don't have a psychological break, because that's generally what would happen to somebody who like went in that process and then is just like dumped back in their environment. So that's just something
May I respond
yeah.
to that real quickly?
Yeah.
So my thought when you said that was like, damn, like she needs to talk to Carlos, because like I get why he wants to challenge the narrative and is getting all this support from California state legislature and all this stuff with starting the first above board ceremony in Oakland that's going to be based in serving those communities that have been the most disproportionately by this like, draconian drug war. So basically kind of starting with those communities that have been the most disenfranchised. And so it's interesting to me that you're bringing up this whole other intelligence, this whole other like feminine intelligence of what's afoot on the psychic realm, and what you're doing when you're opening those portals with people that are in that constant state of feeling unsafe, and how deep that is. Like that's so friggin' deep. That's just so conceptually deep. And so I get you when you're calling us out, for those of us that are like well-intentioned, that are like, oh, we'll just bring plant medicine to those communities. Like, even though that's a total simplification, I think, of what the idea is, but like, I love that you're like, yeah, totally irresponsible. Like, let me just break
Mhm.
why. Like, thank you.
Yeah, it is. And I would love to talk to him about that because I care about the minds of people. And a big part of my mission, like I go back to Inglewood and do workshops and things. And I'm working on different projects to create land projects to be able to bring children from those communities out of that environment. Just because just getting out of the environment itself is healing. Like I never was actually in nature until I was 19 years old. Like my first actual experience of the earth, unfiltered, not a park, was at 19. And that's the mentality of a lot of people who are in those communities. And so this is serious stuff. And just like introducing something that's mind altering into a community space where you have extreme PTSD, like a war vet, just by existing, and this has developed in you by the time you're 5, you already have like extreme PTSD. Like you don't just like go and like bring psychedelics into that space. You need to create an environment of safety first and let them be in that environment and already feeling safe, feeling comfortable, feeling rapport and trust to the facilitators on a deep level first. Because like coming from that environment, your first, like, you always just don't trust. Like you just don't trust people that are coming at you with anything, because everyone comes to the hood and they're like, we're going to do this for you, we're going to do that for you, and then they like don't do it, and it's like broken promise after broken promise after broken promise. And so that's what's really real, and that's what's really alive there. And there's one more thing that is really, really important that hasn't been brought up, but it's very important. Specifically, African American people who are of the bloodlines that were brought in this country through slavery, and so have had all of their culture, all of our ties and connection to our like royal lineages in Africa, and our spirituality and all of that stripped away, and then told that if we practiced anything that looked like it, we would be beaten or killed, and then given Christianity that has encoded in it all of these restrictions around what you can and cannot do, and calling it all of these different things that are like earth wisdoms, witchcraft, and like bad. Like that is another thing that's a huge barrier. And there has to be conversations first on a very deep level about unconditioning the mind from believing that these innate earth, these earthen communications with God as being like negative. Because right now, like most of the African American community, just out of like necessity and survival, is deeply Christian, because our ability to connect to God is still present inside of that, but it's only connecting to Father God. It's not connecting to Mother God. And the all, like the actual God, all inclusive, all mind God is the reflections of Mother God and Father God unified. But right now, through the lens of Christianity, you only get Father God, and Mother God is completely left out of the picture. But in order to get people to understand why they feel such a resistance and that fear that comes up when they're like, I don't want to try that, like, that's not them. That's the fear of like, Massa gonna beat me if I try that. Like, that's what that is. And so these types of conversations are also really integral, preliminary conversations and healing that don't involve plant medicine at all, that just involve time and space and awareness, that I think need to happen in order for responsible engagement to begin to occur.
Can I just go on the back of you here? It's really interesting you say that, you know, we're all focused now on Father God, which is true, and we have lost our focus on Mother God. Because when I started channeling this male energy and my friend started channeling the female energy, we were like, why is it two separate energies that are coming through, and a male and a female? Maybe, you know, not two females, since this is the time of the woman that's coming up. But again, you're right. It is that unification of the male energy and female energy coming together as one. And so this is actually what I'm getting as well, that, you know, the focus definitely needs to shift off just Father God, but also include the mother as well.
Yes, absolutely. And I feel resonant too, Michelle, with everything that you're saying about the balance and understanding that the soul is what carries the balance. And there's a lot of like externalization of like how do we engage with the balance of the polarities of the feminine and the masculine, but it's like it's an internal unification of our ability to show up fully and in integrity, and like the follow through and the clarity and the discernment, that's all of our masculine principles, and the initiation. And then like the feminine principles are the nurturing, the intuition, the like emotional care, the matriarchal responsibility of understanding that you don't just like put people on psychedelics. Like you have to create a safe space. You have to create a container, like what Haley Maria was saying. Like like the containership is so crucial for any of this healing to happen responsibly. So yeah, that's all I have to say.
I would really love to hear a couple of the voices that are here on this call. We want you to know that we love your thoughts and your perspectives. So, you know, just calling you in here to join in and share your thoughts.
So I'm a cashier at a Safeway, and I think part of my biggest worry with being part of this movement is how I'm going to beat corporate. You know, we're these plant medicines are doing really great things for addiction treatment, especially with alcohol addiction treatment. And you know, some of our biggest vendors are liquor and beer, and I'm going against or like we're going against their money. I don't know, like I mean, they I'm all for uh the healing and getting rid of these harmful or I don't know, like we have so many limits on cannabis in this state, yet I can sell somebody 6 bottles of wine or 6 bottles of Jack Daniels with no problem. And you know, coming from a family that had alcoholism, it's I don't know, I feel like I am just helping to perpetuate more hurt by selling these items. And I want I mean, people are going to do what they want to do, but what is, I don't know, those are kind of like some of my concerns with this movement. Like, what is that going to mean? Am I going to, and I mean, if I get fired for this, honestly, then it probably wasn't the place for me anyway. I can always find something else. But this has always been one of my concerns. But I don't think it's that big of a concern, but just more of like a what if, you know. Thank you.
Were you talking about um, the potential of capitalization in this realm? Or are you more so talking about the internal struggle of working in an environment that is perpetuating the issues that push people towards needing to do that kind of self work and healing?
More like the internal issue in itself. The you know, I want um you know, alcoholism can be it's a killer. It in more than one way. I mean, it's so much can come from it, and any substance abuse disorder. And it's these programs that we have in place, like 12-step, just really comes from a place of shame if you're not like if you relapse or if you go back to drinking, because total sobriety, it can be hard for some people. And we have these systems where you just kind of you're set up to fail, it seems. And I don't know I don't know what could become later down the line. Because I want to be all in this. I want to be in this fight, but I know I also have to survive. So if it comes with the possibility of losing income, what can I do? Or is that a valid concern, I should say? Thank you.
Sorry, I'm just getting back on.
So I feel that you know, I was talking to somebody recently about alcoholism, and they were saying to me, you know, alcohol is, you know, they call it a spirit, and it's called a spirit for a reason, because it does bring in, you know, a different entity within you. And that people who are on alcohol, they are just trying to find a spirit of peace within themselves. And so, you know, they get into alcohol to try to find that spirit of peace, because there are other things that are going on in their life where they don't feel peaceful. So, you know, again, this was just, you know, somebody I was talking to, and this was his views on alcohol and alcoholism. And, you know, until that person can find that peace outside of the bottle, you know, they're going to continue to try to look for it within the bottle. And so, you know, again, there are, you know, different things that, or maybe different messages that people are getting through the alcohol that, you know, why they're not able to shake it, or that they're getting and they're using the alcohol to dampen it, is maybe what I should say. So, you know, everybody comes to their own medicine at their own time. You know, so I think for people with alcoholism, you just have to hold space. You know, eventually, a lot of people are able to get off, and they, you know, the AA meetings, although you're right, it is full of shame, but there is also a sense of support within that as well. So, you know, maybe if we can find a way to hold that, that sense of support for, you know, loved ones, or, you know, friends, or whoever that is, that are using alcohol, that this is, you know, something that we can also try to do. You know, but I think everybody comes to their realizations within their own time.
And Chadez, I also just want to speak to your personal inquiry around, like, because what I'm hearing is that there's a feeling within you of like this polarity, this split of like, you feel passionately about this movement and what it can do for people, getting them away from alcoholism and all of those things. But then, you know, there's this split because the way that you're receiving your income, you see, like, even though Safeway sells a lot of things, I'm sure like a lot of the revenue that comes in is through like the alcohol sales. And so you see how that's directly like influencing, it's directly feeding your income, which is allowing you to live, which is allowing you to have the space to be a part of this movement. And so that's normal when we're stepping into our path and into like our passion and our purpose, to become aware of incongruencies, areas where we're like, whoa, like you know, this is who I am, this is where I am, and I see how this job that I've been doing, it's like it's supporting me, but it's not in direct alignment with who I am and where I am. And so I see you, I see your soul. I think you are so much more than a cashier at Safeway. And so I hold a vision for you to figure out what is that aligned passion, purpose. What is a stepping stone? Maybe you become, instead of a cashier at Safeway, maybe you should just shift out of that and find a position at an apothecary or at some other like holistic space that feels more in alignment with this work, until we figure out what is your actual like offering that you could be doing, or some sort of like salaried position within this realm that you could be doing, so that you feel completely whole and in integrity in yourself in every aspect of your life, because that's really important, and that's also a part of the shift. And so I hold that for you. And if that's something that you want to talk about more later, like I'll drop my email, and I'm here to support you in shifting in that, because that's what I hear in what you're saying.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate that. Because it is like a tear. I'm like, oh, here, I don't know how I can it, because you know, we get all I work at my Safeway is called Unsafeway, and it's, you know, we're in the hilltop community of Tacoma, and I don't feel, I don't know, it's definitely just a bunch broken, like you were saying, you know, broken promise after broken promise that really discourages people after a while. And it's it feels like a lonely path when you want the best for everybody, but it seems like you're the only one doing the work. But then I find people like everyone in this call that are willing to put forth that effort to want to make, you know, the world this better place for everybody to heal. And so just if I can find something in alignment with this movement to, you know, look for, you know, these holistic places, and this, I mean, you know, I don't want to have to continue working this 9 to 5, but you know, it pays the bills. But thank you so much for your feedback, and for what you're, and for what you said. And I will definitely reach out to you.
Yes, I just sent you my email privately, so you can go ahead and copy and paste that somewhere, save it.
And you know, Chidez, one of the things that you shared with us as far as your internal struggle and feeling some dissonance, being in that workspace and wanting to do this work, I think you're touching on something that reflects for a lot of people. A lot of people are experiencing this. A lot of people are unable to get access to even to participate in this kind of work, because capitalism, colonialization is just pushing people down from being able to access this kind of healing. And so I really want to encourage you, and I think that Trinity, like, so spot on with your reflection, Tishadez. I really want you to encourage you to kind of delve deep within yourself and find, because at the end of the day, it's like we have, you know, our hierarchy of needs, right? You need to pay your bills, you put food on your table, you know, you have all your basic needs. Kind of go into yourself and see what your needs are, right? And see where in your community you can access these things. And I know you mentioned you're in Hilltop. I imagine that your community extends beyond that. I know that it's particularly difficult in that area. But, you know, having this pandemic and just seeing how it's impacted so much of my community, so many people have lost their jobs. The only options for jobs are being essential workers in places like Safeway. And I've started to notice a lot of people who are finding their own passions in this time and turning it into something that can be self-sustaining. So what are you passionate about? Explore that, give yourself the time, give yourself permission to do that, because that is going to be more in alignment with you, and it's not going to be an immediate shift. It's going to take time for you to get where you feel best in how you're sustaining your life and also being able to do this work. You know, and I made a post online last month on my birthday. It was the most public post I've ever made in regards to plant medicines. I shared my story, well, part of my story on how plant medicines were a huge part in helping me get cancer free. I was so nervous to share that. You know, I do have a job. I am applying to graduate school right now. You know, these are things that you're like, oh, am I gonna get in trouble? You know, and I just had to have faith. You know, you're doing this work, you're gonna be protected. It is scary to be public about something that is so revolutionary, but you have that strength within you. I believe in you, and just know that you have us as a community here. I will drop my email on here for everyone if anybody needs somebody to discuss these topics with. I'm happy to, you know, to be a part of your community, Jadez. You are supported. You are loved.
Right.
You're held.
I also was hoping Solana would have a chance to introduce herself before we ended today. And Stephanie may not be able to, and Denise left, and Monique had a technical issue but said she loved the conversation. So Solana, if you're able, I don't know if you're able to unmute yourself.
Yeah, yep, I'm here, I'm listening, and sorry, clear my throat. Let me turn my video on. Oh. Okay, how do you do video? Okay, there we go. Hi, good to see everybody. I've just been listening, and Chadez, I agree with who is responding to you.
Haley,
Like that duality. I'm talking about that duality, and that's what I keep hearing about, like mother and father, and the colonization, the insidious like acts of generational harm and violence, and how like today, right now in 2020, we are talking about that still, like how impactful has that been, and how these plants can aid our work, right? What I've been discovering about these plants is that you don't really need to be in the medicine to do the work. What I've been discovering about myself is how plants, and that's so it makes sense now that it's like circling back around. I have so much to say to everybody. Holy cannolis. I love every one of you. A little bit about myself. Let me now introduce myself. Mother, well, birthed 4 kids, adopted 5, so 9, and then 2 indigenous healing modalities, so domestic healing modalities that can be billable through Medicaid and other insurances, but I don't work for a place that would do that. So I can do one-on-one sessions with folks and facilitate people healing themselves through somatic archaeology, generational brain spotting, My passion is about pregnant people and their babies and breastfeeding and partnering with our first foods. Um, it took so long to get on the video because I've been fasting for 4 days, and then I have also been like working and my kids and my family and my house, and um, I really pushed it. I think I pushed it a little bit too far, which is what I'm good at doing. Uh, so it's just so humbling, to be doing that, and also so nice to see everyone's faces. And thanks for the invitation today. I'm going to drop my email in the chat, and just whoever, everyone, just feel free to send me an email. I'll put my cell phone number in there too. And I really appreciate where this dialogue is going. For me, somebody was talking about the ones who were enslaved and imprisoned, and how we were, murdered or killed for practicing our beliefs, our culture, our birthrights, and how, like, even today, like, there's that hesitation, there's that fear, and anything fear-based is going to be false 100% of the time. And so that means if there's fear, there's no trust. And so if there's no trust, there's no intuition. If there's no intuition, there's no relationship. So for me, that's what it comes down to, working with these plants, is that first relationship, like that first opportunity on a cellular basis. Because for me, that's where these plants bring me. And I feel like that's where I meet them at. And it's just even deeper than that. But I don't want to take up too much time. I'm going to turn the video back off because I'm finally eating. And it's just really good to see everybody. Thank you.
I'm wondering if someone feels up to doing a kind of closing prayer, and we'll try to do this again sometime, and then hopefully just kind of keep up these little seminars. And the plan is to take these and edit them and produce them on a larger level so that people hear these conversations, and so that everyone can learn from these conversations. And so I appreciate everyone sharing.
I would be happy to do a closing prayer unless someone else wants to.
Thank you.
Okay, I just want to bring all of our awareness to our feet, actually, first, and just feeling your feet connected to the floor beneath you, and feel how that floor, that surface, is an extension of the earth. And so then allow yourself to feel connected to the core of the earth, the core of the mother. And allow that connection to continue to go down all the way out of the earth on the other side of the world. So then imagine all of our feet connected to the earth and the different places we are, going through the core and different places of the world that we are, and extending all the way back out into the universe, out into the atmosphere, all the way beyond this universe into the realm of universes, all the way back to the God of all gods, the one central mind that we are all iterations of. And just feel completely held and grounded there. Feel the feeling of being grounded, not just through your earth body, but through your celestial body as well. And as we feel grounded here, we thank all of the ancestors, all of our guides, guardians, spirits, light beings that have showed up, all of the plant spirits that have showed up to hold the edges of this container in all of the directions that Haley Maria called in so beautifully, calling in all 7 directions the way that she did. And allow ourselves to feel these directions and to pull these directions back into our core. So pulling our own tethers in this circle, holding the circle back in, feeling the east and the west, the north and the south, the mother and the father, all coming in, returning into your heart, returning into your center. Holding that, as each carrying our own thread of the tapestry of light that we are weaving, building this new paradigm. thanking all the energies that showed up, thanking ourselves for showing up. And may this conversation be a pillar of nourishment to continue this work. May we all feel nourished. May we all receive what we need to receive in all aspects of our life so that we can continue to show up in grace and reverence in this work, in this service. And I thank everyone, and I thank God for creating this space and for giving us breath and for giving us life. And with that, I call this circle closed. It is done, it is done, it is done. Thank you.